My wife accidentally called me on speaker. I heard her tell her lover, "He's so pathetic. I can't wait to leave him." I didn't say anything. I simply hit record. 2 days later, I handed her divorce papers, and that's when she realized I had heard it all. My name is Daniel. I am 38 and work as a project manager for a mid-sized construction firm in Phoenix. My days are structured and predictable. I leave early, deal with contractors and schedules, and I am usually home by 6 unless a site runs late. My wife is Lauren. She is 36 and works in marketing for a regional retail chain. We have been married for 9 years, and we own a house together in a quiet suburb. No kids. 2 cars. Shared mortgage. Shared accounts. Up until last week, I would have described our marriage as tense but stable. Lauren has always had a sharp tone. She corrects small things in front of other people and treats basic mistakes like personal flaws. I noticed it early in the relationship, but it was infrequent and usually tied to stress at work. Over the past year, it became more consistent. If I loaded the dishwasher differently than she preferred, she would redo it while explaining why my way created more work for her. If I forgot to replace something from the grocery list, she framed it as me not paying attention to her needs. I addressed it directly in March. I told her the constant criticism was wearing on me. She responded that she would not have to correct me if I handled things properly the first time. I suggested counseling. She said therapy was for couples who were actually failing. The last 3 months felt more distant. She guarded her phone more closely and started taking calls in the garage or outside on the patio. When I asked about it, she said she was managing a difficult client and did not want background noise. I accepted that explanation because it was plausible and because I did not have proof of anything else. I did not go looking for evidence. I focused on work and routine. I believed that if something was wrong, it would eventually show itself in a way that could not be dismissed. It did, just not in the way I expected. The call happened on a Wednesday afternoon while I was at a job site trailer reviewing change orders. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced down and saw Lauren's name. I assumed it was something quick about dinner or a package delivery. I answered without thinking. I did not say anything right away because I could hear her voice already. It was slightly echoing, which meant she had me on speaker. She was not talking to me. She was laughing in a way I had not heard in months. Light, almost playful. Then I heard a man's voice. Calm. Familiar in the sense that it sounded comfortable with her. I stayed silent. She said, "He is so pathetic, I cannot wait to leave him." There was a short pause, and then she added that I had no idea what was coming and that once things were lined up financially, she would be done. The man asked something I could not fully make out. She responded that I was predictable and easy to manage. She said I would never suspect anything because I do not think strategically. I felt a physical reaction first. My hands went cold. My breathing slowed down instead of speeding up. I did not interrupt. I did not hang up. I hit record. I do not normally record calls. I am not someone who looks for leverage. But in that moment, I understood that if I confronted her without proof, she would deny it and turn it into another example of me being insecure or overreacting. I have seen her do that in smaller arguments. The call lasted maybe 4 minutes. They discussed meeting that Friday. She said she would tell me she had a late client dinner. When she finally noticed the line was still connected, she said hello in a different tone. Polite. Controlled. I ended the call without responding. I sat there for several minutes staring at the trailer wall. I replayed the recording once to confirm I had heard everything correctly. I had. I did not call her back. I went back to reviewing the change orders and finished my workday as scheduled. I drove home at my usual time and kept my routine exactly the same. I did not want to tip anything off before I had a clear plan. When I walked in, Lauren was at the kitchen counter scrolling on her phone. She looked up and asked how the site visit went. Her tone was neutral, slightly distracted. I answered normally. I asked about her day. She complained about a coworker missing a deadline and said she might have to work late Friday to clean it up. She delivered that detail casually, like it had just occurred to her. I nodded and said that made sense. I watched her more closely that evening, not emotionally but analytically. She was relaxed. She made a comment about how I chewed too loudly during dinner. She corrected the way I folded a towel after we cleaned up. The same pattern as usual. Nothing in her behavior suggested she thought anything had gone wrong earlier that day. I did not bring up the call. Instead, I emailed the audio file to a secure account I use for work backups. Then I saved a copy to a flash drive I keep in my desk. I did not know yet how I would use it, but I understood that preserving it properly mattered. That night, I reviewed our finances. Joint checking, joint savings, mortgage in both names. My income covers about 60% of our expenses. We both have separate retirement accounts through work. She had mentioned lining things up financially before leaving. That part stayed with me. It suggested planning, not impulse. I checked our recent transactions for anything unusual. Nothing obvious. No large withdrawals. No sudden credit card spikes. The next morning, I called a divorce attorney before work. I asked for a consultation and explained that I had reason to believe my wife was planning to leave and might be hiding assets or coordinating something behind my back. The receptionist scheduled me for Friday morning. I did not feel angry. I felt focused. Whatever was happening, I wanted to respond based on information, not emotion. On Friday morning, I took a half day from work and met with the attorney. I brought printed copies of our bank statements, mortgage documents, and a summary of our monthly expenses. I also told him about the recorded call but did not play it yet. He asked direct questions. Length of marriage. Any children. Any history of domestic issues. Any major debts. I answered clearly. 9 years. No kids. No police reports. No shared business ventures. The house is our largest asset. When I described what I heard on the call, he did not react emotionally. He asked whether she had access to any accounts I did not regularly monitor. I said no. He advised me not to confront her until I was ready to formally file. He also told me not to empty joint accounts or do anything that could be interpreted as financial retaliation. We discussed property division laws in our state. Given the length of the marriage and our income levels, the outcome would likely be straightforward. Sell the house, or one of us refinances. Split equity. Retirement accounts divided proportionally. No alimony expected unless there was a major income disparity, which there was not. He drafted preliminary divorce papers that afternoon. Filing would start the official process, but I could choose when to have her served. I left the office with a folder in my hand and a clear timeline in my head. That evening, Lauren told me she would be at a client dinner. She wore a dress she had not worn in years. She did her makeup more carefully than usual. I did not comment on any of it. She left around 7. I waited about 15 minutes, then checked our shared location app. Her phone was not at any of the restaurants she normally mentioned for work events. It was at a residential address across town. I saved the address. I did not drive there. I did not call. I sat at the kitchen table and reviewed the recording again, just to be certain I was not misinterpreting tone or context. I was not. She came home a little after 11. I was on the couch watching a documentary with the volume low. She walked in like it was a normal night and set her purse down. She said the dinner ran long because the client had too many questions. She complained about the restaurant being loud and overpriced. The details were specific, but they were delivered too quickly, like she had rehearsed them in the car. I asked which restaurant. She named one downtown. I said that was interesting because traffic alerts showed a road closure near there earlier. I kept my tone neutral. She hesitated for a second and then said they had taken a different route. I let it go. I did not push further. The next day, I checked the address from the location app. It was a townhouse complex. No business signage. I searched property records online and found the unit owner's name. It matched a man listed as a regional sales consultant for a vendor her company uses. His LinkedIn profile had several photos from company events. I recognized him immediately. He had been at our house once for a barbecue 2 years ago. That removed any remaining doubt. On Sunday morning, I went back to the attorney's office and signed the finalized paperwork. Filing would officially begin the process. Service could happen at home, but I requested that she be served at work, not to embarrass her, but to avoid a volatile reaction in our house. The attorney said it would likely take 48 hours. I went home and spent the afternoon organizing my personal documents into a separate folder. Passport, birth certificate, tax returns. I moved them into a locked drawer in my office. That night, Lauren criticized the way I parked in the driveway, saying I always leave too little space on her side. I adjusted the car without arguing. 2 days later, around 3 in the afternoon, she called me. Her voice was different. Tight. Controlled. She asked if I knew anything about a process server coming to her office. I told her yes. There was a long pause on the line. Then she asked what this was supposed to mean. I said it meant I had filed for divorce. I kept my tone even and did not elaborate. She immediately shifted to offense. She asked if I had lost my mind. She said normal people talk before doing something like this. I reminded her that we had talked in March about counseling and that she dismissed it. She said this was extreme and unnecessary. I did not argue. I told her we could discuss logistics that evening. She came home early. She walked in holding the envelope like it was defective paperwork. She demanded to know why I blindsided her. I asked her to sit down. I played the recording. I did not watch her face at first. I watched the phone screen to make sure the volume was clear. Her voice filled the room. The same laugh. The same line about me being pathetic and easy to manage. When it ended, she did not speak for several seconds. Then she said I had violated her privacy. She asked how long I had been spying on her. I told her the call came to me, and I stayed silent. I said that recording it was a decision I made once I understood what I was hearing. She tried to reframe it. She said she was venting and that I took it out of context. I asked what context made sense of lining things up financially before leaving. She did not answer that directly. Instead, she accused me of being insecure and overdramatic. She said everyone says things they do not mean. I told her I would not stay married to someone who was actively planning an exit while presenting a different version at home. I explained that the paperwork was already filed and that my attorney would handle communication moving forward. That was when her tone changed again. She asked if I was serious. I told her I was serious. She stood up and started pacing. She said this was not how adults handle problems. She said I was throwing away 9 years over one overheard conversation. I corrected that. I said it was not one conversation. It was the content of that conversation and the fact that it confirmed months of distance and deception. She asked if I had been checking her location. I said yes after the call. She called that controlling. I pointed out that we both agreed to use the app years ago for convenience and safety. I had never questioned it until I had reason to. She switched tactics again. She said the relationship had been struggling because I was emotionally unavailable. She claimed she felt unsupported and that she needed someone who challenged her. I did not debate personality assessments. I told her that if she was that unhappy, the appropriate step was to initiate separation honestly, not coordinate an exit plan while calling me pathetic. She denied having a plan. I reminded her of her exact wording. She said she did not think I would actually hear it. That statement mattered more than the insult. It meant the only mistake in her mind was being overheard. I told her we would need to discuss living arrangements. I said that until the house situation was resolved, we could treat it like a roommate setup. Separate bedrooms. Minimal interaction. No shared social events. She asked if I expected her to just accept that. I said she did not have to accept it, but the legal process had already started. She asked if I was going to tell our families. I said not yet. I planned to wait until we had a clearer timeline from the attorneys. She looked at me like she was recalculating something. Then she asked if I had sent the recording to anyone else. I told her no. I said the recording was saved for legal clarity, not for public distribution. I had no interest in sending it to friends, family, or her employer. I only needed it in case she tried to dispute the sequence of events. She studied me for a few seconds and then asked if I planned to use it against her in court. I said that depended on whether it became relevant. If the divorce remained straightforward and uncontested, it would likely never surface. That answer seemed to settle something internally for her. She shifted from confrontational to practical. She asked what exactly I wanted. I told her the same division the attorney predicted. Sell the house, or one of us refinances. Split equity evenly. Keep our own retirement accounts proportional to contributions. No drawn-out fight. She asked if I was trying to punish her. I said no. I was trying to end the marriage efficiently. That evening, she moved some clothes into the guest room without further discussion. There was no apology and no admission of the affair beyond what was already recorded. She framed it as emotional confusion rather than betrayal. The next day, she texted asking if we could pause the filing and try counseling. I responded that I was not interested in rebuilding trust after confirmed deception. I kept it brief. Later that afternoon, I received an email from her personal account. It was longer and more measured. She said she felt cornered and reacted defensively. She suggested we could redefine the marriage instead of ending it. I did not reply immediately. Instead, I forwarded the email to my attorney and asked whether pausing the process would create complications if she later changed her position again. He advised against stopping once filed unless there was genuine reconciliation backed by action. That night, Lauren was quieter. Not angry. Calculating. Around 10, she came into the living room and asked a different question. She asked whether I had spoken to the man she had been seeing. I told her I had not spoken to him and had no intention of doing so. She watched my face closely, like she was checking for hesitation. There was none. I said my issue was with my spouse, not the third party. If she chose to involve someone else in our marriage, that was her decision to account for. She asked if I was going to contact his employer or create problems for him professionally. I said no. I was not interested in escalation. I wanted the divorce finalized without side conflicts. That answer seemed to lower her anxiety slightly. Then she said something different. She said he did not know she was serious about leaving me yet. She said their relationship was complicated and that I had accelerated something that was not fully defined. That clarified more than she probably intended. I asked directly whether he knew she was married. She said yes, but that she had told him we were basically separated emotionally. I did not respond to that characterization. She then asked if I would consider mediation instead of attorneys. I told her we could use mediation for efficiency, but the filing would remain in place until a signed agreement was reached. She seemed frustrated that I was not reacting emotionally. She said I was acting cold and detached, like none of this hurt me. I told her my reaction had already happened on Wednesday in a job trailer when I heard my wife describe me as pathetic. She did not apologize. Instead, she said I should have confronted her first instead of collecting evidence. I reminded her that the conversation I overheard was about planning an exit while managing me strategically. Gathering information was a rational response to that. After that, the conversation stalled. She went back to the guest room. Later that night, I checked our bank activity again. No unusual transfers. No sudden withdrawals. The next morning, I received a notification from our mortgage lender. A request had been submitted to inquire about refinancing options. The refinancing inquiry was submitted under both of our names. It had been started online at 6:42 that morning. I was already at work by then. I did not call her immediately. I called my attorney first and forwarded him the lender notification. He said an inquiry alone does not obligate anything, but it suggested she was exploring options to keep the house. He advised me not to sign or authorize anything without written terms reviewed. When I got home that evening, I asked her directly if she had contacted the lender. She said yes. She claimed she was trying to be proactive and see if she could refinance in her name so we would not have to sell. She framed it as helpful. I asked when she planned to tell me. She said she assumed we would discuss it eventually. I told her that any financial move involving joint assets needed to be transparent from the start. I was not interested in surprises, even if they were presented as solutions. She became irritated and said I was micromanaging. I reminded her that 2 days earlier she had been coordinating a hidden exit plan. That context changed how I evaluated unilateral decisions. We agreed that if she wanted to pursue refinancing, she would submit a formal proposal in writing through mediation once we scheduled it. No independent steps beyond information gathering. Over the next 2 weeks, communication narrowed to logistics. We divided grocery expenses. We set a timeline for listing the house if refinancing was denied. We informed our families separately with minimal detail. There were no further arguments about reconciliation. She stopped suggesting counseling. I did not ask about the other man again. Eventually, the refinance application was denied based on her income alone. The house went on the market. We accepted an offer within a month. At closing, we signed the documents without discussion beyond what was required. After the funds were distributed and the divorce finalized, I moved into a smaller place closer to work. The routine felt familiar again. Structured. Predictable. The recording still exists, stored in a folder I have not opened since the filing. I do not revisit it. I do not need to.